Hello, hello.
How you doing, Alfie? You looking priestly tonight.
Ah, I try. I
But
try.
you know what? But you know what, guys? Although he's looking priestly and we're both priests, of a certain denomination, we're going to talk about this because I think this is important to add to our conversation. Because just to give you guys some context, I've been talking about the bridges between spirituality and sexuality since 2016, going on 2017 when I left spicy work. And baby, she's been dragged to kingdom come about how the bridges don't bridge with these things, but this is a part of my divine purpose here, and it's also a part of me being initiated in certain things and coming from even a church background growing up, that like your spirituality doesn't have to fucking look holy for you to be divine and for you to be purposeful. So we're gonna get into that tonight, I know for sure. Afi, would you go ahead and introduce yourself first? And I want you to introduce me too.
Okay. I like that. I like that. I like that. So, great to be here. Definitely with my soul sister here. It's always a great
And,
pleasure to
and not
connect.
to interrupt you, I also want you to make sure you let them know that you are my elder. That matters. That matters in this conversation.
Those things do matter.
Mm-hmm.
Those things do matter very much so. So my birth name, Afimaye Galarraga. Everybody knows me, Afimaye. My community is Afimaye. When my arm was twisted, and I mean this literally and with no ego. I mean this from my heart. When my arm was twisted to open up my life practices, spiritual practices, upbringing, experience, more into the world, and was basically forced to come online uh, through social media and what have you. That was about 11, 12 years ago, or 13 actually. Um, I got known a lot in the community by spiritual Dr. Afi. A lot of people, the naysayers and the haters, which we all have, and who cares about them? We should even give them 5 seconds of our space. We can call, would criticize it by saying I was self-proclaimed, and actually I wasn't. This tag, or what is not the slogan, tag spiritual Dr. Afi, came about through my clients, and came about through years and years and years of people referring to me as you are more of my doctor than my actual doctor, than my actual therapist, than my actual counselor, than my actual what have you. And that's why when I decided to come online, one of my godchildren says, you should go on into the world as you've been called by many of us, by many spiritual Dr. Afi. You are our doctor. And that's how that came about. So it's not necessarily self-proclaimed, number one. Number two, my background. My background is in criminal justice, is in psychology. Um, I worked in mental health for a long time. I also worked in the criminal system for equally for a long time as well. But my spiritual practice is something that I was born into. I was born into my Afro-Cuban spiritual practices. My parents have been Afro-Cuban spiritual practitioners and healers for too many years. So that's how I got introduced through birth. And over the years, I have opened up to not, I'm surprised that Spirit is even leading me to use that word for myself, because I don't consider myself to gatekeep. But now looking in at a deeper level, I think because of my upbringing, I kind of sort of was gatekeeping, right? Because if we look at gatekeeping not just from its negative standpoint, we could also look at it as for someone, as for myself, where you are raised to, this is private, your spiritual private practices are private, you don't open it up to anyone, you don't share it with anyone, whoever comes to you, it's just someone that was referred to you by someone else. But this whole thing about going social media, going basically nationwide, if you will, was very difficult for me, because I thought I was disrespecting, dishonoring, stepping all over what was the training, the spiritual, community, cultural, and community training. I had to break free from that and obey Spirit's command, Spirit's call to open up and not gatekeep, basically, if you really, if you will. I came across my beautiful soul sister here, the trap witch Tatiana, through social media. If it wasn't for social media, we would have never connected. And if I recall correctly, someone I guess had sent her my page when I think I had only been online for 2 years or something like that, or three maybe. When someone sent her my page, and I was surprised, to see her following me, not because I knew her, because I did not know her at that particular moment, but being such a newbie on social media, I was, taken a little taken aback that someone with her huge following was following me, who was barely, I think I had like 1,000 followers back then in my original page, right, the one that got taken down. Um, and from the head go, this young lady was not just very extremely supportive, but respectful in her way. Her approach was never condescending, was never questioning in a, who the hell are you, and what do you think, you are, or anything like that. Quite the contrary. It was a very unique, natural, and organic connection. And over the years, we've built a very special friendship that I have been granted by the divine to also guide her and mentor her in our Afro-Cuban spiritual practice as well. And I'm honored that she's opened her heart to be able to be guided, And if any of you that are on here from my page, and if you look at the trap witch, if you study her work, you see that if you're not of what I would like to say of higher consciousness, you would think, you would make the mistake to believe that her approach to the teachings that her spirit guides allows her to share with the world could be interpreted as very anti-men, anti-masculine, anti-divine masculine, which is absolutely not the truth. But if you have to be very open-minded and understand this, and take off your conditioned goggles to be able to understand that. So to have someone like her, who also has a psychology background, to bring me on, not on here to this life, but into conversations that we have and things that we share, and to be able to guide her spiritually from the Afro-Cuban perspective, it's an honor for me, and it's an honor for me to call her my friend, as well. So, I'm definitely very excited for this conversation. Each and every time we come together, there's fire. There's a lot of fire going on, because Spirit brings truth. When I come online, when all the meditations that I do online, I always make it specific to share with the world. I am imperfect. There's nothing perfect about me. Don't put me in a damn pedestal. I don't want to be there. I am just a vessel for Spirit, and I try to teach from Spirit, and I also try to put myself in the right emotional and mental space, so that when I come on here, I'm not coming on here through my shadow, to my uninvolved parts of my shadow. Quite the contrary. When I go into teachings, I'm also learning myself, because I have many times in the past, whether I'm doing a live or sharing a post, sometimes I share things that Spirit inspires me to share, and I also make it a point to say, this is a teaching for you, and this is a teaching for my own black eyes as well, because sometimes, Spirit gives me things that's like, okay, shoot, that's for me too, so we're very authentic in that, if I may say so. It's a very self-serving comment, but there's authenticity in this kind of work. And I think that tonight's topic, which is a hot one, we're going to break it down naturally. There's no script here. We didn't, rehearse. We didn't talk 5 minutes before the live to say, okay, what are you going to say? What are we going to say? No, we always go very organic, how Spirit wants to flow. But I believe it's a very important topic that also ties into shadow work, and
Yeah.
ties in, which is the bulk of my work, and is the bulk of the trap witch work as well, shadow work. And it also, in my personal case, it also ties into the another aspect of my work that I dedicate heavily to, which is ancestral healing, ancestral elevation. So I also thought that it was her time to come out of her haze, So I say, hey, we need to go live.
Well, you know what? And I'm gonna enter now through here. So I think it's really interesting. You know, Afi did nudge me on the shoulder this week and say, hey, it's time to come back on live, because I think more than anything, because people have seen me at a certain level right now in pedestal, they assume I'm not doing my own shadow work as I'm growing. And the past 3 years, the end of 22 going into now 2025, the past 3 years of shadow work since my own last uncoupling has just been so profound. And why it's been profound, and this ties into everything, you know, I met Afimaye when I was in the end of my year-long initiation into Santeria, you know, crowning Ochun and Chongo. And that year, I want to be really clear because I don't say this enough out loud. That year and the relationship I went into during my year that ended in 2022, that really made me go within to now come to a new place outside that I feel so embodied in a way that I never thought I would. Because first of all, I never thought that I was going to be reintegrating parts of myself that I had exist out loud very much when I was a spicy worker, um, when I was a younger, more like unintegrated version of myself. And that's because I was having a bit of shame, I think, especially with some of the things we see through the year in white. For those of you who are not familiar, the year in white in Santeria is a time of renewal. You go back into the womb, you're like a baby, and you're looking at the world through new eyes. What I did not realize, and I don't know if I've ever spoken to you about this, but the first 3 months, which they say in the initiation into this priesthood, this journey with for life with your guardian angel and Orisha, you know, spirit guides, they always say the first 3 months are like the most important. That's what I was told. And I remember coming out of that initiation and being in my home by myself with my Orishas. And I kind of felt insane because I felt like they were telling me, like, dance, move, be spicy, cut. Like, I felt an amplification of my shadow in the first 3 months that felt very taboo to me because I thought that I was being rebirthed into this more like holy version of myself. Because for those of you not familiar, we wear white for the whole year, we wrap our head, we're in by a certain time, so it feels very much like you're being stripped of your personality. But I felt my guide saying, oh, you're gonna become spicier than ever, and that felt so wrong to me. I have to admit that. So in 2023, the beginning of 2023, I started getting these channels and these downloads and these, you know, nightmares, honestly, that my shadow was like really on me. And not because, you know, I'm inherently here to be, what's the word? I'm here to allow people to know that your sacred expression, your holy expression, like, it doesn't have to look holy. Like your spiritual expression, it's meant to look human. And that's something in the past 5 years that, although I initially started the trap witch with that in mind, because that's what I was told to do, it was still something I was resisting. I have a south node in Virgo in the second house, a north node in Pisces in the eighth. I have a Venus in the eighth house. I have lots of fire expression. And these past few years that I've not been going live, I've been really becoming okay again with the fact that this shit is gonna look so fucking human at times. People are gonna think that you're not evolving spiritually. And the thing is, like Afimaye said, like, I consider myself very high consciousness. Some of my teachings are so far ahead, especially for me with dark feminine integration, that at times I have to be willing to be not taken seriously by people because they underestimate the spirituality based on how I look, how I present. You know, I remember doing my first speaking engagement out of sex work. And I remember, and I feel like this is a full circle, I wore this bright ass fucking green wig down to my ass, but that was a statement, not just for me, it was for the women who were in environments like myself, that we can make it to these spaces, and just because we have a primalness of us, we have an expression, an embodiment of us, like, it doesn't mean we don't have a space. And so it's so funny when you said when people come to my page they wouldn't think that I didn't expect you to say, like, that I didn't like men, because what I always tell people, and this I believe ties so much into my priesthood and my journey with Oshun, I love fucking men. I mean, like, if we want to get spicy in this conversation, like, there's times where I consider myself like, I don't know if I'm a traditional marriage girl necessarily in spirit. I'm very primal. I love men. I can go outside and be like, him, and him. You know what I mean? Because I have a large sexual appetite, large capacity for many things, large Shakti. And so I love men. But what I had to learn in my unintegrated sexuality, I did not need to give so much energy in ways to men, right? And I always tell people, I'm not a fragile woman in my femininity, where I don't believe that every woman gets her sexual energy robbed from men by physically sexually engaging them. I'm a woman who gets my sexual energy robbed through emotionally overgiving and caretaking. So the way that some people virginize and purify women, that, oh my God, if you do this with your chocha, you do this with your pussy, you do this, you shake it, that you're draining your energy. Yes and no. I am a woman, when I overly caretake, when I overly self-sacrifice in ways that are very spiritual, emotional, mental, that is when I get my sexual energy robbed. So when it comes to this part of my journey right now, I have never loved the divine masculine more. I am here for the restoration of the family structure. And when I say family structure, I'm not limiting it to just marriage where a man and woman. No, we're talking about divine masculine men protecting women, not just the women that they want to control, not just the women that they want to fuck. I'm talking about men who want to be protectors of women that are their sisters, men who want to be in union with women and not rob them of their expression, their sexuality, their freedom. So I fucking love men. I love men. I hate weak ass shit from
Gotcha.
wounded masculines.
Yeah.
But if you coming around me with that big protector, big pleaser, big provider, big dick energy in your aura, that's fine. But I love men. So I always tell people, if you don't worship the goddess in the sense of respecting her in the highest levels of her sexual embodiment, her voice, her mind, her emotions, and her body, and how she wants to own her body before you fucking experience it, then we can't get along. But I love a man who is about all of that. And just like yourself, you come from a legal background. A lot of people don't know that I wanted to go into law work earlier on in my life. I interned with the CID in high school. And when I became a spicy worker, sex worker, I knew when I came out that I would be working with law enforcement, but also felons and former spicy workers too, because it all ties into just the shadow and the taboo of society. And I have found, even in my life, that the men that support me most are like reformed gangsters, men who really are in tune with their shadow. So, at the end of the day, if someone's not in tune with their shadow and don't know where their blockages come from, their shame, their stigma comes from, then that's usually when people have a problem. So yeah.
Yes. I'm all for that. I'm all for it. Which brings us into segues into this hot topic of sacred whoredom.
Mm-hmm.
I wanna, number one, we're here because we want to contribute to a different kind of understanding about how sexual energy, which is really our life force, people don't understand how deeply our sexual energy is intertwined with our life force, can be sacred, and it can also be healing, and it can also be conscious as well, versus this manipulative mindset that men and women, specifically and more so men, and specifically and more so Black people, indigenous people, and women have been dominated through their sexuality, in terms of how you are, through religion, you're told that you're going to burn in hell, because of your sexual expression, right? Or you are to be someone that can only express your sexual energy as long as it's accepted by someone else. So it segues into this topic of sacred whoredom, and I wanted to also know, I guess I will pose a question in terms of what's been your experience with this particular topic that we're bringing to our following, and how it has changed over the years. The trap witch that was in hot work, and the trap witch today. How has your understanding about sacred whoredom has evolved?
It's evolved because, well, first of all, I always tell people, for those who don't know, like when I decided to commit to spicy work, and I make this clear all the time, it was a fellow priestess of Oshun
Mm-hmm.
that got me into that work. So Oshun was an opening into that. And I really held a lot of space for men's shadow. I was not judgmental. I wanted to know, why you were there. Are you lonely? Are you neglected? Do you want your cake and eat it too? And for those of you who don't know, I did tantric massage. I did sensual massage. And so, it was a lot of body work. It was a lot of conversation. The way that I made it more enjoyable for me, right? So that I wasn't just objectified. I humanized myself, and I also humanized my clients. So really and truly, the version of me then and the version of me now, the only difference is I serve I served men in that way, and now I serve mainly women in another way to take autonomy of their own personal experience. And that's because I did take autonomy of myself during that experience. A lot of people think that um, all workers in that sense are not intelligent, they're not autonomous, you must have been coerced, you must have been really down out and bad. Like, no, I worked with women who were hematologists by day and spicy workers by night. I had women that worked in law offices, wanted
Mm-hmm.
to make extra money or just feel you know powerful and in control, and have financial abundance and excess. There's nothing wrong with that. And so really, it taught me the power of just using what you have within in many different ways. You know, it was actually very much a big, I feel like, dopamine kick and, adrenaline rush at times, where you just like post an ad and you manifest throughout the day. Go down, baby. You moving too much. Hold on. um, it really taught me about intuition, about manifestation, about faith. Like, some days you would go in and you haven't made $1 yet, and you're leaving with $2,000 just because you decided to write an ad and there's a demand. But I was very much like in control of who I wanted to see, how I wanted to do it. I tell people that my space in that way was my first temple.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time that I learned what it meant to create a safe space, not just for others, but for myself, and be a goddess. And you're coming into my temple, and these are my rules, and I provide you the experience, but bring your offering to the goddess. And then, so I feel only difference is now that I teach other women how to do that in whatever space in life that they're in.
Yes.
I was intentional. I tell people all the time, I think intentionality goes a long way
Mm-hmm.
when using your life force energy. And that's why when people tell me, oh my God, like nothing good ever comes from that realm, it's like, bitch, for who? Speak for yourself. I've had to tell women off all the time, or a man, if you've never put yourself in those shoes, you would never, you can't speak. It's one of the oldest professions in the fucking world,
Mm-hmm.
with good reason.
Yeah. But here's the perspective.
Uh-huh.
It's interesting because people that express themselves like that, like those comments that you get, then nothing comes out of that. It leaves me with no other interpretation, or it leaves me with no other information other than to understand that that person has zero idea what sexual energy really is.
Yeah.
Sexual energy outside of intercourse, outside of the physical act. Sexual energy is not exclusive to physical energy, to physical touch in terms of sex, right? So in you know me, the Virgo in me likes to always look at the timeline of things, and I like to always look at the root of things and go beyond what is superficial. And in studying sexual energy and what it means and what it represents and how it's been translated over the years, and how patriarchy has also had a major influence on what sexual energy is and how it could be expressed and how it could be shared and how vital it is for both women and men as well. We can go all the way back to the there are ancient cultures that were archetypes known for sexual energy, right? And I believe if I know how to pronounce the word correctly, I think it was referred to as the sacred harlot, Harlot, and in reading about that, it states historically that or Temple of Priests also I recall it says that that concept of whore, because women these days, right, especially our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, especially if they were Christians, especially if they were under that patriarchal control, under control of men of what's right and what's wrong, would look at a woman perhaps with in a miniskirt and she get called a whore. You look at a woman, walking down the street, and she only gets reduced to being a whore. She might be a lawyer too. You can, look at a woman in a particular kind of way, and because it doesn't fit the script that you were told is a holy woman, a sacred woman, a good woman, you put her into this category of whore. But if you take a deep dive in what whore really is and where it actually come from and how it's been transformed over the years, it goes all the way back to the sacred whorelot, right? And the sacred whorelot was actually a divine woman. She was a divine woman who, through expression of touch, of support, of someone who, through her body, and her energy, she was considered to be a channel for the divine. It's interesting how the sacred harlot, where the actual term whore comes from, got just reduced to low life, insignificant, someone not that doesn't deserve grace, or someone that's not intelligent, or someone that's not deserving, or someone that can express, and someone that can communicate, and someone that's just nobody,
Yeah.
which is totally not true, right? So in when you look at ¿cómo se llama? Uh, the Sumerian tradition, the goddess Inanna or Inanna, if any of you know the pronunciation, I'm butchering it, my apologies, embody both sensuality and sovereignty. And when we talk about, from where I see it, you tell me if you agree or not. When we look at sacred whoredom, it's about sovereignty.
Yes.
It's about being able to feel sovereign,
Yeah.
not just within your physical body, because the sex is not physical, it's spiritual, it's energetic, it's a vibration, it's an energy. And what I want to, and I will probably, disclaimer, I will probably repeat this 1.6 million times before this life ends, how women, men as well, but specifically women, have been robbed of their sovereign sexual energy and expression. And in my case, studying and diving and knowing and understanding spiritual healing, spirituality, ancestral healing, being robbed from your sacred, sovereign sexual energy robs you of everything else that's vital for your life. Even your finances, your emotional balance and stability, you're being able to understand yourself as a human being within your body. Because if you are stripped away from your sexual energy through conditioning, training, told what's right and what's wrong, then that sexual energy, which again, I will repeat like a broken record, is not laying down with someone in bed and having sex. When you are robbed from your natural God-given sexual energy, you are also being robbed in other areas that sexual energy, which is life force, will show up to express itself through your creativity, because sexual energy is creativity. So you cannot rob someone from their sexual energy and expect them to be creative. This is why, I don't know if this has been your experience, over the years doing readings
Mm-hmm.
and working with people, and my clientele, for for some reason it's more women than it is men. um, I have sat with countless, I will say at this stage of my life, 30 years into this work, what, thousands of women, right? And families and what have you. I've seen how so many people that come and say, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know. Purpose. Purpose. Wait a minute. It took me years to understand that a person that does not understand their purpose doesn't understand their sexual energy,
Yeah,
or is
absolutely.
not grounded in their sexual energy. We have been trained to think that each and every time we hear sex, we only think about one thing and one thing only. When indeed, sexual energy is creative energy, is purposeful, right? I don't know how I don't know how you feel about that.
Absolutely. So one of the notes that I made before our call was that pleasure is a prayer. And
Mm-hmm.
look at pleasure, right? The ability also, especially to be connected to your sacral chakra. Your sacral chakra is connected to your creativity. Taking pleasure in what you want to create with your energy is everything, right? When you talk about how you want to talk, how you want to think, how you might actually want to express yourself artistically, just however you want to show up in the world, it's all
Mm-hmm.
connected to finding pleasure in doing so. So many of us have been conditioned to not always take the exploration into really finding out what brings us pleasure. You know what I'm saying? We don't sit, we ask ourselves, does that bring me joy? Does that turn me on? Like when something is for you and you find pleasure in it, right? You
Mm-hmm.
get charged up, you get excited, you get stimulated. Like there's times where I love to write so much and I love to think so much that like I'm typing, I'm about to fucking like bust on myself because I'm like, oh my God, like I love this so much. That is what being connected deeply to your pleasure is. And
Yes.
you are allowed to do that and you're allowed to feel that channel open. Everything that you want to manifest in the universe becomes drawn to that. Because when you think about pheromones, when you're putting those pheromones on the attraction to attract mates and attract not just sexual mates, but like platonic mates, your tribe, that matters. I did a class at the beginning of my journey in 2017, and this came to my mind, like that quote from the Bible was like, I'll make you fishers of men. And I was like, my dad was a fisherman, so I know about bait. It's like when you go fishing, you use this kind of bait because you want to catch this type of fish. And I thought about like being a fisher of men, like how do I fucking do that? So many women, I fucking hate to see this shit. I hate to see this fucking shit on the internet. I hate performative dating. I hate, people telling you to be this type of performative to attract this, like all this fucking shit about let me attract a high value man. Why somebody telling you, like, I know what a high value man is for me. That might not be a high value man for this woman over there. So if I'm trying to teach this bitch how to fish, it might be different from this bitch because everybody has their own individual sexuality. Even when
Yes.
you're talking about your own journey, it might not look the same.
Exactly.
What's poison to this person is meat to the other. So what I feel is that when you are in shame, when about just what brings you joy and pleasure and really what you're good at, you know, the past couple years I have been really sitting with what my guides tell me, what my higher self, and they're like, damn, you're a real primal ass bitch. Like you're a primal ass bitch. My magic is very primal. So there's times where people said, you talk too aggressive. You're showing up in a way that's this. Listen, my femininity is aggressive. You know, I'm in my soft girl era right now. I'm in my baby girl era. I'm dating, and I'm around men that make me feel masculine. Not, excuse me, masculine, feminine. They make me feel feminine. But within my spirit is such an aggressive warrior woman. I still cannot be with a man who doesn't like my spicy side, who doesn't like when I'm assertive. Because just as someone can put me into the other polarity, and it's a dance between the two of
Mm-hmm.
them,
Mm-hmm.
I need to be granted the safe space to be able to find pleasure in that expression. You know, I remember being in a
Yes.
relationship, and I'm a flirtatious bitch, like for real. Like I love to flirt because flirting is psychological. It's banterous. It's, you know, and I like to banter. And I remember being with someone who just like, oh my God, are you okay? Do you know how to flirt? Do you know how to banter? And they didn't. And I found myself becoming repressed because then my pleasure was getting dwindled. And if you're someone who uses your pleasure constantly as a prayer to be attractive to the things that you are manifesting, being around people and being in spaces in which you cannot be authentic and autonomous in that is going to kill you slowly.
Yes. 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 Your light is slowly dimmed.
Yes.
Your light is slowly dimmed. That is important because one thing that I've noticed over the years is that sexual energy has been continues to fall it continues to be boxed in
Mhm.
when you are not allowed by society, by your family, by church, by your religion, by whomever to express your sexual energy. You either are casted out, you know, you're a whore, you are whatever it is, you're a whore, that whole whore topic, or the person suppresses it. And when you suppress it, then you are out of alignment with your life force. When it's suppressed, when your sexual energy is suppressed, it's almost like it's not understanding what the embodied self is, being the embodied being. A balanced sexual energy is one in which you are sovereign, we stated, right? But you are also liberated, you know, and you're someone who is, you know, you embody a that higher being within yourself that allows you to not look at eros as shameful, but as divine, you
Mhm.
know, being able to understand that sexual energy is also spiritual. Oh, that's mind blowing for a lot of people, and it's also something that many people will reject because very few have been raised to understand that sexual energy is also spiritual as well. You
You know
know.
what's interesting is that, you know, patriarchy, and we know this, you know, colonialism, all this shit
Mm-hmm.
has
Mm-hmm.
really demonized a lot of sexual energy. And one of the things, and I don't think I struggled with it, but I just questioned it a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
I had to see the way that my life manifested in order to believe that I was worthy to be in positions, because there's so many people who will tell you, like, even when I was going through my divorce, right? And what I learned from my divorce, there were just people, you there's just so much judgment. I'm trying to verbalize it, but they will tell you that God doesn't like this and God doesn't like that, and I'm like, God, even though I was,
The God that they have humanized.
yes, but it
That's the key.
humanized to the most wounded, unintegrated,
Of
repressed version
course.
of
Of
self.
course.
You know, it just will make you question, because the moment I started living certain things out loud, my life just continued to evolve. And I just had to keep telling myself, you're gonna have to be willing to have the scarlet letter put on you and have no shame. You're
Yes.
gonna have to be willing for every other week for someone to be like, send her to the gallows. Like, but once you get in enjoyment of that, I have to tell you the truth. Like, I tell people, like, you almost have to find the pleasure and the joy in people constantly trying to punish you, because when you look, like, their punishment really doesn't mean shit, because, like, at the end of the day, it really doesn't mean shit besides how you internalize it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I really
Yep.
would really think about, the power that people allow other people to have over their journey just around shame. It's like, bitch, who punishing who? Like, I, I'm punishing myself. Most of the time, these people, they can say things, but when you understand most of them are projections, it doesn't,
It's
I don't know.
conditioning.
I just
It's the
think that,
conditioning.
I
It's
think that
it's,
be really, really in tune with yourself and your own personal journey. It goes back to, I tell people the truth all the time. I've been truthful on my page. At one point before I was a spicy worker, I was a very, how do I word? I was a very explorative girl. And I had many lovers. I had many one night stands. I personally don't feel that if I still wanted to do that now, knowing what my purpose is, what would I be punished for? The only reason I believe spirit really started directing me in another direction was because I wasn't focusing on my purpose. I wasn't
mm,
focusing on where my power. I used to be very much a man eater. I've had two men come back from my past and they told me, and I laugh about it. They're like, "You made me feel so cheap." And when I asked them why I made them, I'm sorry, I always laugh about it. I'm like, "Why did I make you feel cheap?" They're like, "You were just so um aggressive and masculine and you know what you want." And spirit wanted me to divert that energy towards not just eating men sexually,
mm-hmm.
but putting that energy into becoming a feminine leader and letting the feminine collective eat up the patriarchy. So it's like, I don't really find that I've changed too much since
Mm-hmm.
I've evolved. I've just learned to direct my energy better, but I still don't think that God shames people as much as people humanize spirit.
Okay, I got something for you.
Okay.
Based on what you just shared with us, man eating. I have a perspective on that energetically and spiritually. And because I've seen this before many other people, it is my belief, and I'm willing to be wrong, it is my belief that consciously and or unconsciously,
Mhm.
this this which you, through your understanding, have come to the conclusion of who you were, someone that you, as you see yourself in that past, you saw yourself as being like a man eater. I don't see it like that. I see it as someone, for the purposes of our topic today, right? Sacred whoredom, sexuality, sexual expression, which is a vibration, which is an energy, which is life force. Huh, interesting. What is life force without peace? What is life force without protection? What is life force without love, right? With
Mhm.
that understanding, it could also be easily understood that that which people would refer to as aggressiveness on your part
Yeah.
could also have been that part of your inner child looking for that protection, looking for that love, looking, because love is not just this peachy thing, draw a heart on the red heart on a paper and buy me red roses and red flowers. Love is protection. Love is safety. Love is also peace. So when someone calls you aggressive, aggression that is linked to masculine energy. Well, what is masculine, true masculine energy that is divine? Not the masculine energy that's patriarchal, controlling, one-sided. No. Divine masculine energy is what? It's protective,
Mhm.
it's about love, it's about peace, it's
Mhm.
about balance.
Mhm.
And a lot of the women that I deal with
Mhm.
in healings, in readings, that is precisely what they have lacked. They have lacked protection,
Mhm.
they have lacked safety, two
Mhm.
vital vibrations that as humans we need and deserve. They've lacked that. So when a woman is referred to as aggressive or too masculine or too aggressive, in reality is a woman that has to protect herself because she has been unprotected, has to
Mhm.
love on herself, and that's the way that she chooses to love on her because she has not been loved correctly. It's a
Mhm.
woman that's not been offered peace, so she has to find it in the way that makes her feel safe.
So I so so Okay. So yes and no, because I think I'm a good example because I'm a very nuanced woman. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I've realized, and I shared this information with a sister the other day, and she said it helped her greatly. I believe that I have been a woman, even in my younger years. I knew how to compartmentalize men
Mm-hmm.
in my life. There are men that fall into a very small percentage that I want them to love me, protect me, and care for me in a way that I would want a romantic partner to do. There's another compartment of like I can just have a pure lover
Mm-hmm.
where I cannot see him as a partner, but I want to experience him. I have men who are allies, right? So it's easy for me to put a boundary there energetically when I know a man is someone I just want to sexually experience, but I don't necessarily want him to show up and protect me and love me how I would a partner. So I can agree with you that yes, there were times when I wanted someone who I wanted them romantically in partnership.
Mm-hmm.
I desired, and that's where my inner child can flare up and expect you to really provide a level of safety, really that I don't expect in other ways from other people. Because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I'm an Aquarius woman.
Yeah.
Aquarius women, we are different. We are very masculine. And I think
Mm-hmm.
again, I don't believe, now that I've sat with myself long enough and done my shadow work, I do not believe that all of my masculinity in the way I am a woman comes from being underprotected. I am simply an aggressive woman. And I say this because I was having a conversation with my sisters this week. And I was telling them about how like I flirt with my romantic counterpart. And they're like, "Oh my God, like you're so banterous and funny and like it can make men uncomfortable who are masculine
Yeah.
men because it comes off as very intense. It is very all consuming. So that part of me is just who I am when I want something. And I think again, if I were to compare my younger self to my older self now,
Mm-hmm.
that energy I would use to hunt men that I wanted to consume in whatever type of way. Now I use that energy to go after my goals, but that energy still comes up in my personal life because it's just who I am.
Of course, of course. Oh no, I can see that. I can see that. And I've known many, an evolved. Lord, that's going down a rabbit hole I don't want to go into right now. But an evolved divine, a true evolved divine masculine has the same experiences. Okay, you can, as a man, you can also a divine masculine man, not a low vibrational motherfucker can compartmentalize women as well as like that in that same manner. You can have the one that you just want to have sex with, and that's perfectly fine. There's you don't want to hug and see the sunrise. You just
Yeah.
want that part and that's it. And you have the other one that is like your soul sister, the one that you can connect to in levels that you wouldn't with someone that you just see as a sexual one night stand partner. And then you have the other one that people will call their soulmate, or their ride and die and soulmate and love. So it go both ways, right? And I can see how that can be true for someone like you.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
the way you are or the way I am, we're a few fishes in the sea in comparison to the many more that still do not understand themselves, that still don't know what the fuck they want, that still don't know what they're looking for, and behave in similar ways, not knowing that it is as a result of their unprotectedness,
Yeah.
as well. So it goes both ways.
You know, one of the best things I did for myself in the past year is like really get in tune with my archetypes of who I am, right? And so I put it into four, and it's very much tied to my brand. I am a spiritualist and occultist. I'm an academic. I'm a sensualist and hedonist. And I'm an entertainer. Those are my four. And so the way that I live my life and I experience people, I know that, like, especially for like women, right? Women that are listening. There were times where I made people that I should just be communicating with my lover because I wasn't clear on how I experienced my life force energy and sexual energy in
Mm-hmm.
different spaces. Like, this is what I was explaining the other day to someone too. It's like the reason why it's important to like compartmentalize not just sometimes yourself, but then people who come into your life, because when you're confident with who you are, what you need, what
Mm-hmm.
you want to experience, and then what you're looking for, then it's easier to curate these experiences. You know, it's like I was having a lot more experiences in my younger life that were just like messy and muddled because I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't clear on that. I tell people all the time, I've done 4 rounds of celibacy, okay? Since 2016 to now, I did 4 rounds of celibacy. I'm not celibate anymore. I'm honestly never claiming celibacy ever again because celibacy at the time were just periods of withdrawal to be within my own energy to discover myself and being clear on how I want to share that energy with other people. You know,
Mm-hmm.
now I'm a lot more in control of all of my chakras. Like, I can be honest, right? Let's be honest. We're getting spicy. Like the other day, I had a gentleman that I've want to put me through the fucking headboard for a very long time. Come back into my orbit. And he always does many times. And I always resist because I just know myself, right? And it's such a thing to experience the desire, but to have the restraint, to have the confidence to be like, you know what? That's something I could do, but I'm not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And trust yourself, you know? But also with my journey, like, there were times where I asked spirit, like, is it time now to just like let this go? And they're like, yeah, go have a good time, be intentional, be safe, but like go ahead and break that fucking funky ass celibacy and open back up shop again. But that again doesn't mean that you're not just you're being frivolous. I think it's just important to understand that like sexual energy at the end of the day is what you choose to intentionally do with your energy.
Yeah.
And that's from, you know, from your flesh to your mind, your attention span, um your voice, when to speak up, when not. Because what
Mm-hmm.
I learned is I spent a lot of time in my younger years when it comes to men and when it comes to women too, like just in general friendships, like I just used to spread myself thin with people,
Mm-hmm.
you
What
know.
that tells me, what that tells me is that you have a great ability to listen to your body.
Yes.
So that's that, but that's sexual energy. True sexual energy that has not been conditioned and that has not been controlled by patriarchal is one that allows us to listen to our body. When we look at at sacred sexuality, it truly invites us to. It's like a homecoming, and it invites us to come home, to the body, to be able to breathe freely, to feel freely, to listen freely, to what desire actually says when it's not drowned out by guilt or pressure or shame.
Yeah.
Literally.
You know, even the past year, I've really become okay with, again, like, there's so much shame, especially in women, around like anger. I think anger, especially. Like, I realize, like, I carry a lot of fire and I do carry a lot of anger. And one of the worst things for me to ever do is like repress my anger. Like, just allowing my darkness to show up, like, in whether it's in dark humor, whether it's like for me to just say, you know what, I don't fucking like that bitch, or fuck you, or, you know, like someone last night, even last night, someone left a stupid comment on my post and they were like, this is dumb, and I was like, your mama. I just, in that moment, I was just like, your mama. Like, because the pleasure that someone could just take is so free. Like, I could take the pleasure back, and I think sometimes, like, I'm finally past that whole like be the bigger person. It's like most times I am the fucking bigger person.
Mhm.
And to continue to evolve and not hold that shame and guilt in my body is also just being really authentic in my expression. And I am not pure. Like, my mom said to me the other day, we were talking, she's like, God, you just fucking, she's like, you just curse like a pirate. Like, you just curse like a sailor. And I had the, like, it was the funniest thought. I was like, man, I guess I really survived that era of parents talking about they're gonna wash your mouth out with soap. Did your mom ever tell you that? And it was so funny. Like I literally laughed. I was like, all those
Tell or
times
do?
I said, all those times my mom told me that she was gonna wash my mouth out with soap. My bread and butter is being an unfiltered, vulgar pirate of a witch bitch, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Not having any shame in that, not having any guilt in that, because the same words that I butter up in word salad to sound intellectual, sometimes medicine and wisdom is also just best delivered fucking ignorantly.
Okay. It takes a lot because there are people, I think that every person that we come across is a person that is there to either test our endurance, test our what we've learned, or to teach us something.
Mm-hmm.
It's either a test or a lesson. So there are times where we fail to express ourselves the way we really want to because we are afraid of the opinion, of the judgment, of the shame, and of the guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Again, sexual expression, sacred sexual expression is about to express yourself freely without these inhibitions.
One of the things that I wanted to go back to, because when you were talking about, patriarchy and like the repression of women, like what has healed my energy time and time again from the time I was a teen until now is female rap, female hip hop. I tell people all the time, like, I get healed more daily through female rap than I do like going listening to sermons or to like spiritual shit on the internet, because
Hmm.
more than anything my spirit thrives, like I said, in that primal, not needing permission, letting the shadow express itself, not about being perfection, being liberated. And so I think it's really interesting because people don't realize economically so many women through female rap, right, show women how their unfiltered sexual energy can change their whole lives. Like the
Yeah,
explosion in the past 10 years alone, we're seeing so many young women come into that lane. I will always ally them because I truly believe that they are here to show women that that unfiltered energy is so magnetic, it is so abundant,
that's
and it
right.
has so many different avenues of healing for women just to reclaim their sovereignty. You know, I tell people all the time, when I was a spicy worker, the person who actually inspired me to get online and start talking, because Afumaye literally talked about him not wanting to come online. Like people don't realize, like before I was a spicy worker, I went to art school. I was a celebrity photographer. Um, I was doing graphic design, all this stuff, and I was always behind the camera. I never wanted to be in front of the camera. Even when I got into sex work, it was like, oh my God, like being vulnerable, being seen, whatever. It was all slowly to get back to this point where I was feeling comfortable in front of the camera. But like, I didn't want to do that shit for what? I was very, very, a lot of that was wounding though. I had gotten bullied a lot around the ages of like going into high school, going into middle school. So I used to do poetry, I used to dance, I used to play sports. I did a lot of things, and then I lost my dad early. Then I started getting bullied. My mom was a single mom, she was in survival. So eventually my light kind of just like dwindled a bit and became repressed. My light dwindled, became repressed, and it wasn't until God started coming to talk to me. Like I was giving massages, and I was like, because when I would do body work on my clients when I was a spicy worker, I would go into trance. I would literally like turn on Sade. I had a Sade playlist or
Do
anything that
Sabe.
you know, and I would just close my eyes and I would, work on their bodies, but I would also be in a trance and I would start getting downloads. So in 2015, I would be like, doing all this, and then all these ideas started popping in my head. And I remember hearing, you need to be a personality. And I was like, for what? Like, what? And I remember they're like, you have to do this. But I say this to say I was watching Cardi B videos. Cardi B was still in the strip club at the time, and I would be doing body rubs, and I go on Instagram. This is like the early days of Instagram, and she's just talking her shit. And I was like, I like this girl. And so I was like, I'm just gonna start talking and sharing my ideas too. And that's why I tell people, like, just as someone can say that Joe Dispenza or Abraham Hicks is a guru and gives them inspiration, there are different people, different archetypes that are different things for different people. And for me, it was Cardi B. All hail Saint Belcalis, because she was a guiding light that inspired me to find my own channel again and be okay. Because there was a point in time when I started public speaking, I literally could not start speaking without starting to cry within the first 5 minutes, because my throat chakra and my heart chakra were so repressed and so closed down, because I
Yes.
constantly shut down in life from speaking my truth, from speaking up, and to the point now where my mom sometimes says, she goes, why do you fucking talk so loud? But I think it's because I've cleared out the channel so much, and now the passion, the
Yep.
libido, the enthusiasm, the channel just it's the excitement.
The excitement,
It's
even something like that, even something such as excitement.
yes,
You when a person is robbed from their excitement,
yes.
that's another reason, another contributing factor, or sign, not contributing factor, but another sign that their sexual energy has been interrupted. If you're not excited and you can be assertive in what you say, and you miss that excitement. For example, I know people that, as you do too, that no matter what they're doing, no matter what it is, it's always that same monotone,
Mm-hmm.
no excitement. It's all. I mean, it's like they've been robbed from not just excitement. They've been robbed from everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that in itself is representative of a broken sexual energy that has been interrupted or controlled, or the patriarchal aspect of it, if it's from that, right? Which leads me to the following topic, segment, whatever the heck you want to call it. I believe that we can't talk about sexuality, sacred whoredom, sexual expression, without talking about trauma.
Mm-hmm.
I believe trauma plays a major role in sexual expression, because for so many people, for example, and this, I think someone as you, with the kind of work that you've done, and as a woman, can speak about it much better than me as a woman for woman, right? I believe that for so many people, women specifically, erotic shame, and specifically erotic shame. That word comes to me very.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a download. I'm getting like a download right now. Erotic shame. I think you're better suited to speak about erotic shame than me, from a female, from a woman, from a divine feminine perspective. For so many people, it's women clients that I have had. I believe that erotic shame and disconnection, and disconnection come from trauma, that they've experienced, whether it's abuse, religious guilt, whether it's, cultural control, family, generational silence, all that, which is trauma, can cause a lot of erotic shame.
Yes.
And why do I say this? You must have had it as many times as me. How many women do we not know who do not fall into the typical story of being married or being in a relationship with a wrong man, abusive man, wife beater, cheater, etc., etc., etc. No, good man, protector, lover, all the good things, and they still can have an orgasm,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's not because they're not attracted to the husband, to the boyfriend, to the partner. That's not the case. That's a whole different scenario, and I'm not talking about those that choose to marry someone that they're not attracted to because of whatever reasons. That's a whole different topic. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the woman that has an issue with allowing herself the freedom of that erotic, ecstasy. Can we call it erotic?
Mm-hmm.
Pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that way too many times.
Absolutely. You know, I love that you framed it like that. Like, yes, there's tons of people who have the ideal marriage, and like you said, the protect, but they still are lacking this sense of presence and desire. And when you think about it, it's like, to me, it's like a numbing. It's a numbing versus being allowed to be fully present and embodied. You know, I can be transparent. I've had to do a lot of work as I've come into the spiritual community because, like I said, because coming into the spiritual community brought up a lot of trauma for me still, even though
Mm-hmm.
I was very confident who I was. There still sometimes becomes these projections, it becomes this questioning, and then you're trying to protect yourself, but sometimes you become desensitized. And
Mm-hmm.
so there was a point in time where I started becoming numb and disassociated from my body because I was just allowing myself to be spiritual. I'm spiritual. You have to prove your intellectualism. You're not allowed to enjoy your flesh. You're not allowed to enjoy your pussy. You're a spiritual leader. So that then robbed me. In essence, I have this good idealized position. I should be happy. It got to the point where I remember where there was a few followers of mine that said, Trap, but you're such a powerful woman. I can't even imagine a man next to you. I don't even think that you need a man. I said, don't do that to me, bitch. Don't virginize me, because y'all did that shit to Christ. And a lot of people want to take the story of Christ just being single, not being partnered, out of the equation. So I say this to say is that a lot of them are not allowed to be fully grounded into their experience of what
Mm-hmm.
can be good for them, right? Like, we have these idealized versions of what should be good, and like, you have a good house and you have a good man, but you, like you said, there's still something missing. I know people in my life right now that on the surface they look like they have fucking everything, and then they still have no pleasure. They, like you said, they still have no eros. It's just like, it's just dry, and it's just bland, and it's not juicy, it's not lush, it's not luxurious, it's not erotic. And I think that your whole existence can be that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I started realizing in the connection of my healing journey in the past 2 years, because now, I could be transparent, I'm sexually active again. And so now, because I am experiencing that again, I'm discovering certain things about myself. And I realized that I'm a woman who does need physical touch. And when I was a spicy worker, actually being able to physically touch people daily was healing for me. It kept me grounded in my body and tethered to the earth in a way that was healthy, where I can be in the mind, but I can also be in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times I tell people, like, now, let's say I like deep pressure in my own body. So, like, if we're getting into the kink world, people like women, there's women all the time. If you notice this, I don't know if you notice this, but I do. Right now there's a spike in the feminine collective of them wanting dark romance. Do you know, like, dark romance novels are like with the shadow? There's like a spike in that. And it is because, again, I think so many women want to feel desired. They want to feel exhilarated. They want to feel protected, but they also like want something risky. Like, when you think about all the things, right? And not just in connection to that, but like when I think about my journey now, like being a woman who's a risk taker, who's shadowy, who can protect herself, like, I understand all those things, but also being attracted to that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
many women, even women who are like not necessarily the women you would think that would be into those things, are into those things because they, like you said, whether they want protection from a man or they want protection from themselves, they just want that experience. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
bringing that all together because there's so much correlation into what we desire, what we find attractive. And so even like with myself in exploring kinks, I found, like, yes, I like being, like, like lots of pressure and certain things because I like to be connected to my body.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I realized. And I was denying myself a lot of these experiences. Like, a woman will say, oh, I love my hair pulled. And I said, I guarantee if you love your hair pulled, you want your scalp massaged. So when you can't get your hair pulled by a motherfucker, are you in your house massaging your scalp, tending to your head, grounding? There's all these correlations. So, like, going back to what you said, just allowing yourself certain experiences And sometimes it's just a lot of shame that won't allow them.
Yeah, that's the point.
Simple things.
That's the thing. That's the thing right there. The shame around it. My work is definitely about releasing people from their shame, from the guilt, from the control. But also, it's interesting that you say all that you've just said up until now, because what I continue to believe, obviously, one shoe does not fit every person. But what
Absolutely.
I believe also is that what women need, says a man, right? I believe that what women need, or what women are looking for, is for the freedom and the ability to do whatever the fuck they want to do,
Yes.
and not be shame and guilted about it and boxed in, or called just a whore, or called, you're going to burn in hell. Women want the same liberties and freedom that men get, but we don't get shamed about it. We don't get guilted about it. We don't get put into a box. Men, patriarchal society has allowed men to do whatever the fuck we want to do, and we
Mm-hmm.
don't carry, the scarlet letter,
Mm-hmm.
on our chest. No, women want the same rights because they are deserving of the same rights.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Period. If we want to look at it from a religious context, look at Mary Magdalene. I know you've studied her too. Look at Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene. People that just know the Bible, that has been force fed down their throats, can only refer to Mary Magdalene as the whore. I look at Mary Magdalene as a sacred healer. I look at Mary
Mm-hmm.
Magdalene as a sacred healer. Different perspectives, right? So therefore, I believe that what women want is, or deserve and need, is the same freedoms that have been afforded to men.
Yeah.
Period.
I want to get spicy here for a second because I see this a lot on like many sex positive like forums. One of the most taboo things that women confess to wanting sexually is having multiple men at the same time. And I think there's something to be said because we talk about in like, history, like so many men, like, oh, the ultimate man's man is to have more than one woman. Not even just more than one woman, in their experience, in their orbit. Sometimes like that ultimate like male fantasy is to have the threesome, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Isn't it funny that I've seen through all of these forums, so many women have a shame of speaking that's their fantasy when that is idealized as the ultimate average male fantasy that he is granted and he is the man if he does that. I think that is so profound because, again, I think that women have been really virginized in ways that is even just destructful to the experiences that not even they would have to have, but they want to be even allowed to ponder. One of
Mm-hmm.
my things that I've thought about a lot, and I wrote about this recently, was like Cardi B is getting dragged right now for getting pregnant so soon, when she's not divorced and all these things. And we talk about the baby mama thing. And listen, I am all for
I hear you.
healthy communities. I'm all for healthy communities. I'm all for making sure that children come into positive environments. But one of the things that I dare to invite people to is like, I have raised about 10 generations of cats thus far right now in my backyard. And the most interesting thing about watching some of those female cats is they have multiple baby daddies. And I have watched the same cat, in the backyard have 3, 4 different litters by 4 or 5 different. And I'm like, why aren't we shaming her? We see this in the animal kingdom all the time. Even when we were talking earlier about aggression, right? I had the best gift a few weeks ago. I had a praying mantis on my porch, and she was there for 6 to 7 days, and I got to watch her feed twice. I got to really study this animal and see how still and gracious and poised it is, yet how ferocious it is, even as a feminine. So, I just think it's really interesting when we're talking about women just being granted permission. It's like to have the experience or have the desire to even explore, like, well, who am I? Women are just, so many been denied, like, who am I? Just even have the exploration or the joy to find out.
Autonomy.
Yeah, choice.
Autonomy. Choice.
Choice.
Autonomy.
That's a big word right now. With the current administration that we have in the United States, it's never been looking like the Handmaid's Tale. So close. Isn't it? I
Yes.
think it's funny that right now we're in a time that in the country where sex sells the most, we have leadership that really is like trying to push us towards Handmaid's Tale type shit. Like what that, to me that tells me that women are getting too much power in the country where sex sells and we're flipping it. So now because we can't control it, let us try and put it in a cage again. That's what
Yeah.
it tells me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it also says that patriarchy trying to save itself. You know,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it knows it's losing the war. It's losing the war because the universe is requiring balance.
Mm-hmm.
The universe is requiring balance. That's why so much it's changing. But when it comes to bringing healing to this particular topic, to me, healing means learning how to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
It's about learning how to reconnect with your own the signals that your body gives you and being able
Mm-hmm.
to listen to it, right? And being able to understand your yes, being able to understand your no, being able to understand your maybe I don't want this now, but maybe I'll want it tomorrow, and why can I not change my mind? Why do I have to be married to my desires of a year ago? I have different desires today, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
believe that women are learning to accept more that they have the God-given right to change their mind whenever the fuck they want to change it. If they want to be celibate today, fine. If they want to be married to one person today, great. If they want an open relationship tomorrow, great. If they want, to not be in a relationship and not have the white picket fence and the two children and the dog, that's fine too, and that's gracious too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about learning to re-inhabit the body
Mm-hmm.
without shame, without guilt, and to approach desire. I want this out there, to approach desire
Mm-hmm.
as something to explore. That it doesn't have to be the perfect cookie cutter. That it doesn't have to be a lifelong contract, right? To explore desire, not something to perform for approval, because that's what many people have been doing.
It's so funny when you just said that, like not performing for approval and like changing your mind. Like again, we're talking about sacred whoredom and sex. It reminds me of like when we're getting into sex positive conversations where it's like, yes, a woman can consent to sharing her body with you, and just because she's sharing her body with you, she can consent to taking it away. That's like very popular in marriage conversations where people are like, oh well, I'm married, I'm supposed. No, you can put the pussy away. He doesn't need to have it. And you know um women wanting to be soft one day, wanting to be more aggressive this day. She wants the love make tonight, she wants the fuck tomorrow. Again, it's allowing yourself the messiness and not the boxes of perfection. Because again, I think that um I know for me, so many women were just in this like perfectionism, like from the way that sometimes we look, or to the way that we think you have to show up as a ideal or a fantasy. And I have a huge problem with like femininity coaches right now coming online, and whether it's spirituality or whether it's how to find a high value man, or there's just so much performance and so much perfectionism, and there's not a lot of women granting themselves the self permission to look at their own personal journey, because a lot of people don't know how to often observe without fully absorbing everything, taking what
Hmm.
they need and
Hmm.
discarding the rest. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of good information. I think we are in a heavy age of information with AI exploding. With We have just so much information at our fingertips, and when you're going on your journey, like you said, going back to your body, finding your autonomy, making your choices, you have to find what feels right for you. And for me, like on my journey, and I've been in so many spiritual spaces now, or what's deemed spiritual, and I'm just like, man, I'm on my own lane right now, because what feels good to me, it's not in this space nor it's that space. And just because I can fit in there doesn't mean I belong there, because my body doesn't feel safe there. You
Exactly.
know, like, I'll give
Exactly.
y'all an example. I've been talking about this, like, I've been in the spiritual community for 10 years. I get invited to all types of spaces. Um, I could do all the, like the comedic, head wrap and copper bangle shit. That I get invited to that shit. That doesn't always feel best or right or good. And then I get invited to the elitist, capitalist, proximity to white, and then that doesn't feel good. I can go into both spaces. I can give to both spaces. I can be immersed in it. But
Yeah.
ideally, I don't have to belong to either or. I belong to myself. And sometimes the space that I'm creating is going to feel best to me because it allows me to be my most authentic self. Because in those spaces that I found, like, I don't always thrive the way I deserve.
Because, in my opinion, we as human beings were never meant to be restricted and boxed in.
Yep.
We
Like, why
weren't.
so many fucking rules? Like, again, who's making these rules?
Who's making the rules? The people that feed off of someone else's control.
Mm-hmm.
That feed. Let me rephrase that. The person that feeds off of being able to control other people.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones that make the rules. I'll
Mm-hmm.
make a rule that'll box you in into a place that will feed me,
Mm-hmm.
which is why we have to be so conscious of we refer to it as energy vampires, or whatever the case you want to call it, because when you are boxed into a place and you are not able to fully express, to fully be, to freely choose, then someone else is benefiting from that restriction of yours. And
Mm-hmm.
your lesson is to be able to break free by listening to your body, because your body's going to always tell you, I'm not happy. I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel good. I feel off. I feel disconnected. That's why I, over the years, have been a little less judgmental
Mm-hmm.
of when I hear stories of, well, this guy, he was such a dick, she was a good woman and he just upped and left. Maybe he was fucking suffocating and he couldn't deal with it anymore, or vice versa. If she often left and couldn't deal with it, maybe she at some point believed that was where she wanted to be, but she woke up one day and realized that this is not how I want to die.
Mm-hmm.
And we are as people, as humans, we're very judgmental of other people's choices and decisions, right? When in reality there's many different ways of at looking at something that doesn't look normal to us. We're
Mm-hmm.
not in the era anymore of our great grandparents and grandma, where you married this person and you promised, you took a vow in the church, God, to be with this person until they die. Now that they're fucking abusing me, fuck no. Goodbye. See you later. I'll be the first one to tell you better serve those divorce papers. So, people want their freedom. And for anyone, I'm going to plug this in, for anyone who's experienced trauma
Mm-hmm.
in the sexual energy topic that we're speaking on today, if anyone has ever experienced trauma, healing, the healing that I'm talking about, and Trap Witch as well, um, the healing isn't about becoming more sexual. That's not necessarily what I'm telling you to do. I'm not saying that, right? It's more about becoming, again, more sovereign. It's
Yeah.
about really being able to reclaim ownership of your energy, reclaiming ownership of your pace, of your freedom, of your boundaries, of what makes you feel whole.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what that's about. And I think that's why people leave. That's why people are deserting us. And in for many of us, in order to get there, we must. And I'm gonna put this out there this way. We must also take time to decolonize sexual energy.
Mm-hmm.
We have to decolonize sexual energy. We have to
Mm-hmm.
decolonize what we've been fed as right and wrong in sexual behavior, in sexual expression, in your life force. We have to decolonize those restrictions that have been passed down from mama, from your own grandmother, from your own father, we have to decolonize that because we've been conditioned in more ways
And,
than 10.
and what I would also invite people to think about too when they think about decolonization, because like that word sometimes I think is so like externalized to like, history in that way. But like for example, and I spoke about this the other day, I did a video.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a video about Cardi and Nicki's beef that's going on right now because
Oh,
they're two hot spirited Caribbean women in female rap. Okay? That's loaded. I talked about what it's like to be a hot spirited woman, and really integrate that and embody that in healthy, positive ways. So I say this when I talk about decolonization, right? When we allow ourselves to be colonized, we allow other invasive people, energies to come in and then take control and then govern. Knowing yourself is knowing the resources, the governance, the way that you control yourself, your autonomy, how all of that goes. And I say that to say, when you look at my natal chart, fire through and through first, then air. Tells me a lot about my intellectualism and my primalness. Even when I've come to Santeria and I do a lot of my readings, I come in with a lot of heated energy because
mm-hmm.
I am here as a heated spirit, learning how to transmute that into a neutral energy, right? But
Mm-hmm.
some people are not like me. It's like when we have people who have, let's say they have a water predominant chart and then they have earth. Maybe they're more watery and airy and watery and ground. Again, learning yourself, learning your toolbox, learning use all these things, all this information, if it's not first being used to know thyself and decolonize from other people's opinions and governments of you, more than anything, that's not going to get you back to the place of yourself as a natural state before anyone told you who you are and how you were supposed to run it. Because what I know is just as I am super fiery, there's another woman who might be super watery. And that's her fucking superpower. And that's
Yeah.
her sexual energy. That's why when we talk about goddesses and we talk about archetypes, it's supposed to be a grand understanding of who you are and how to keep those energies in a place where they are helping you and not hindering you. Because again, right, just as fire is my superpower, fire is also my destruction. Just as water can be your superpower, water can be your destruction.
Without balance,
Yeah,
yes.
without balance. It's just
Yeah.
all about understanding the earth, right, and ourselves without other things constantly becoming invasive and imbalanced.
Yes, yes. Which is why, again, I stick to what I just said, decolonizing,
Mm-hmm.
our minds around sexual energy is very important, especially because, patriarchal systems, what the fuck have they done in terms of in relation to this topic? All they've done is policed our bodies.
Yep.
That's all they've done. They have policed their bodies, especially for black and brown and indigenous, and these days we can even say including that
Think about think about
queer bodies as well.
think about how I want you to think about how malevolent slavery alone was on destroying so much of the spirit of the autonomy. Like even when I start thinking about it, right? You indoctrinate people with fucking religion that's
Hmm.
oppressive.
Hmm.
You take away their reproductive rights, even the way that they enjoy connection, right? You're ripping people away from having connection. Um, you put when I think about the levels of destructiveness and malevolence that is, it's like, why wouldn't it take so long for a certain group of people to find their own pleasure without being demonized, find their own God without being demonized? Like when I think about, what I practice and what I stand for and what I believe in, I'm just like, whoa, like
Yes.
reclaiming these things without shame are powerful. Like I
Yes.
remember when I went
Yes.
to the first one of the first religious spaces I went to was a Yemaya festival at the beach in South Carolina. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember going there and they were playing the drums and I was like, I don't know what this shit is, but what I feel in my body tells me that that's the shit that I need. So I'm gonna just start going this way. So what I kept doing was showing up to certain spaces and what feels right in my body, what opens my channel, what opens my
Yes.
connection, right?
Yes.
And here's the thing: it's like, how do I word this? There's so much performance though. I don't know why. There's so much performance. You have to really
Yep.
tap in, and you have
It's
to.
performance. It's either performance based or repressed. Those
Yeah,
are the two main ones. Right?
yeah.
I keep going back to that too, which is why
Because I'm
the
gonna be
colonization.
honest, even I see a lot of performance in our community.
Oh, of
Like
course, of
I like
course.
I like I'll see people be like, it's like the people who be like, I only listen to Orisha music all day, or I only listen to gospel all day, and I'm like, but bitch, do you enjoy it? Because I've been there and I've been like, I'm gonna listen to this all day, and I'm like, this is a performance, so people think that you're more like you don't like that shit.
Mhm.
Your body doesn't like it.
And mind you, we're having a conversation because this is what this is, a conversation that it is my prayer that whoever's listening can benefit in something that we've said thus far. But we haven't even gotten, because we don't want to make this just about one thing, right?
Yeah,
But there's so much to talk about if we were to talk about Afro-Cuban practices, Oricha
yeah,
practice, godfathers, godmothers, godchildren, guidance, having someone's ori in your power, and how you guide that person through your fucking colonized brain and mind, and how you interpret Urdu, and how that your interpretation of that Urdu can fuck up somebody's life because you're looking at that Urdu through your colonized goggles. Oh, baby, back
yeah,
east, don't let's not even go there. That's a whole kind of worms right there. So that's why what colonization of sexual energy has done. It has been able to police our bodies, but it's so that you know they have been able to continuously define who could feel pleasure, who should not feel pleasure, who's pure, who's not pure, who's sinful, who no. What's pure to you? What's pleasure to you? That's what fucking matters. That's the question. Not what my opinion of your pleasure. I'm not in your fucking body. How am I going to tell you what's pleasurable to you?
hmm
Which is why I really have a problem. Okay, I'm gonna talk about this very quickly. I had a session with a couple a while back, long time ago, where her major complaint, and I don't know, maybe you agree with her, I don't know. Her major complaint was, well, he does not know what to do to me. And he said, or I said, have you told him what you like? Have you told him what feels good to you and what doesn't feel good to you? Well, no, he should be able to figure that out. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Not these days. You know why I don't agree with that? I understood it, I respect it, but I didn't agree with it. Why? Because we come from it. We've been colonized. We've been under the control of patriarchy. We've been told what to do and what not to do. Women have been told what's right and what's not right with their bodies. Men have been told, or have been through this very sexual society, the low vibrational aspect of sexual energy, have been told that you got to go in hard, and women have gotten their lessons. Men have gotten their lessons about intimacy through Playboy, Hustler, porn, and what have you. So that's why I didn't agree with that. I guided them into, there's nothing wrong at all with you telling him what you like,
hmm
what feels pleasurable to you,
hmm
because a real man that loves his partner will follow his partner's guidance and to what feels pleasurable to her. Because maybe all he's known is Playboy and porn and Hustler, and what the conversation of the low vibrational men that he grew up around is about sex. He don't know shit about your body. He don't know shit about brings pleasure to you. To some, it's pulling their hair, being pulled hair, and there's some women that don't like their hairs being pulled. But you gotta tell him that. For you to, for a woman to, for a woman to think that because he is the man and the men are the pursuer, the men are, you know, all the things that we two have been boxed into, to also be put into, well, you have to figure my body out. I'm sorry. I disagree with that. I disagree. I believe that a woman that's truly invested in her partner, that loves this partner, loves this man, and want to be with this person that you said you want to be. I'm not talking about one night stands. I'm not talking about, you know, whatever makes you hot that day, which you also have the freedom to go for that too. No, you're claiming that you are claiming that this is your life partner.
Yeah.
But your major complaint is that your life partner does not understand your body. Have you
Well,
invited him to understand your body?
and here's the thing though, and I've learned this from being a spicy worker, is that people are repressed into thinking that they are not allowed to live their truth. It is so terrifying for people to often live their truth, and it's just even in the general expression of how they're feeling, what they want to communicate. It's this constant overthinking. Do I have permission? Will I be judged? Will I be rejected? Will I be shut down? And people don't want to deal with that conflict.
Yes.
One of the things I experienced when I was a spicy worker, because I would always ask my clients if they were married. I didn't care. I felt like I was like their therapist. So you know what I mean? You know, sometimes we do keep marriages alive because people are allowed to live their truth more openly. And I remember having a few clients that, although I did not want to fulfill their request, there were certain like fetish requests that I got. I asked them, why is it that you do not ask your wife for that? And there was someone once, and probably someone again. So it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that supposed to be your best friend? Isn't your partner, isn't your husband or wife, it's just your partner, whatever, isn't the person that you're in union with supposed to be your best friend, your lover, the person you can speak all your truths to? And it really made me sad. I think that was one of the also the scariest things that I ever experienced, is that there are people laying next to people at night that don't know their partner's deepest, darkest desires, their traumas, their shadow. And it's not always that they are bad, but I just do think that people don't marry for the right reasons, and they don't choose the people that are equipped to hold them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say equipped to hold them in their wholeness. But again, most people don't always know who they are as a whole.
Yeah.
And we are pressured to marry young, procreate young. It's so much achievement based and performance, and not enough, again,
Performance.
taking your time to find your sexual energy. You know, I got married at 25, and I loved him. I was in love with him. He was good for me in many ways, for my spirituality. We matched sexually, but long term in our values, we just did not align. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember still being devastated, right? I'm like, God, you gave me back to the streets. Like, I thought I had my life figured out. And I am 37. I'll be 38 in February. I haven't remarried since, but I can tell you, I would not regret my walk, my path thus far, and the time that it has allowed me to understand myself as a whole, where I would never, ever align with another human being again in union unless I knew that I could be my whole self and be held.
Yes. 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 And yes. And going back to something that you just said, I don't want to miss that. A little bit ago, for us men, a lot of men fail to really tell their partner, their girlfriend or their wife or whatever, what they really want, because number one, it there's a certain sense of embarrassment, right?
And
But there's
control.
also this perceived idea that, what are you going to think about me when I tell you what I really like? What are you going to think about me? Are you going to love me the same way? Are you going to love me or stop loving me or not want me at all when I tell you what I really want? But that opens another can of worms, because then it tells you you married someone without really telling them your truth.
You
Number
know what
one.
I've realized in dating men is that a lot of men like to maintain control. So one of the things that I've seen a lot of men talking about lately is like, nah, bro, don't give her the luxury to know anything. She'll know too much. It's gonna hurt you. She'll have too much control. Um, and so men, whether they don't always tell what they like, they don't tell their whole truth, they don't tell their whole feel. It's a lot of maintenance of control, which sometimes represses them, but it also allows them to pick and choose how they compartmentalize the women in their life too. Just how I talked about like being a woman that compartmentalizes men, right? Um, Men do that too. Men will have the woman who aligns with their performative self, with with their reputation, whatever. And you know what? By all means, in some occupations, you do need that. In some life paths, you might need that. You might need someone that matches that, and you can have a whole other private life. But what happens is a lot of times when people have too many secrets, they have too many taboos, they have too many stigmas, they compartmentalize themselves and they don't live their truth in their lives. Eventually it all gets messy. That's what I'm getting to. But
Yes.
there's tons of men who want the luxury of having their cake and eat it too. And that's why I used to ask my clients, like, are you here because you're lonely and neglected, you want your cake and eat it too? And I'm not mad if you're here having cake and eat it too, because your cake at home might be different than what you need to come get over here this cake for, right? And sometimes, again, we don't even talk about that, where like we should be allowed that, right? I'm gonna be
Mhm.
honest. I used to tell women all the time, y'all give some spicy workers so much shit, right? Thinking we want your fucking husbands. No, sometimes we're trying to just keep your husband fucking sane so he can go out in the world, continue to do some shit for you and do some shit in the world. But I don't need to be living in your house all the time. I don't need to be connected. It's like when we go to the doctor, it's outsourcing. And I don't think that all outsourcing should carry so much fucking taboo. It's like I told my clients all the time, if I am a practitioner that you need to see at this point in your life, see me. Because I referred someone to someone else recently, and they're like, no, I feel loyal to you. I'm like, listen, I might not be the practitioner that you need right now in your life in this
Yep.
season. I should allow myself to refer you to what you need. And again, having the autonomy, but the problem is, I think, with a lot of men, again, men want control in a lot of scenarios,
Hmm.
right? And that's their biggest thing. I think pride, ego, and control. That's what I found.
There's definitely a lot of control. There's definitely a lot of control. Control and also shame.
Yeah.
Shame. One thing that us men will always have a hard time admitting to is shame.
Yeah.
We definitely do not admit to shame, and that's something that I would like to see us men do more of. Admit to what makes us feel shameful, what makes us feel, you know, shameful or not worthy or whatever the case may be, because we've been trained to be disconnected from our emotions. So part of this, is also about when we are reclaiming our sovereign sexual energy, is reclaiming our identity. It's reclaiming our identity, and what makes us feel whole. So,
It's it, it's
go ahead.
interesting. Even when you said shame, I heard like, and the opposite polarity of that is the imbalanced patriarchy that has been told that they should be completely fucking shameless and everybody should be shameful. It's like, again, I'm gonna talk freely. Like this fucking administration we're in fucking right now in the United States, I have never seen so many mediocre fucking white shameless men who think that they have all the permission in the world to be fucking gooch gremlin cocksuckers of other men who are just fucking mediocre.
And it's
Okay?
usually
And they
the
are
men, and it's
shameless.
usually the men in power,
Yes, and one of the only things I think
like the
that
Harvey
they're here to
Weinsteins of
teach
the
you,
world, right?
one of the only things they're here to teach you is, oh my gosh, when you are disconnected from your shame, look how far you can go, even you if you are a fucking idiot. And for those of you, you should watch that movie Idiocracy, because that's
Hmm.
literally what we're living in right now.
Oh yeah, woo, that list is long as you can even think, long. So I want to ask, the people that are with us here still, um, ways that ways that they, especially women, right? Ways that your sexual energy, your sexual vibration, or your sexual expression has been turned against them, either at home, society, at work, because sexual expression is used, like, for example, someone I saw in the comments earlier, someone speak about if part of the conversation we were having at that moment had anything to do with the Madonna horror, theory, and in that moment, no, but yes, the Madonna horror thing, has been used against women, to define how they can express themselves, especially in this patriarchal cultures, because women are expected to be either pure, virtuous, and maternal, the Madonna, right? Or just sexually expressive, passionate, and, dangerous or loose, the whore, right? So there's been many instances in which a woman's sexual energy has been used against them. And so I have a question. My power is often used against me when I am not following their direction. Approval, exactly, their approval. I have a question. What if I literally have a fear if I share my sexual energy, someone will kill me? That's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different ballgame. I mean, I would have to know the whole context of why would you
Yeah,
feel
I
this.
feel like that's missing context too.
Yeah. The whole time, what part of it would make you feel that you would be killed unless you like to be choked and get halfway to death? That's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, we
But
need more context than that.
yeah. Religion, family shame, sexual molestation, sexual assault, society. That's loaded. Ouch. That's loaded. That's loaded. That's
I
loaded.
had I had one this week for myself. Um, this week I have been accused 4 times, twice by men, twice by women. They're all people who are very mentally unwell, but a lot of like projection around like envy, that I'm jealous of them, and it's a lot of stuff, right? And I was really thinking about how people are very magnetized towards me, but then they hate when they can't control me. And whenever I can't be controlled, they find a way to, like, try my autonomy or all these other things. But I was just literally thinking about how, like, when you're a person who's like has what's the word, like bisexual appeal to people, I have that same appeal in men and women who admire my light and my magnetism, but when they can't do what they want with that energy, that's always a fucking beef. It's always some weird shit and projection and other ways to try and control. So that's something I was thinking about this week,
Hmm.
because I was experiencing the same issue with men and women, and I was like, no, yeah.
That's interesting. It's very interesting, and it happens. It happens a lot.
Oh,
It
well,
happens
I have a
a lot.
Lilith rising, so my Lilith sits on my first house, and I will always be projected on by people who want to operate out of being wounded and trying to control others.
Yes. Yes. I think she answered. No, not show for kings, but I'm saying, like, for example, I fear to show up online on social media freely because I feel someone would find me and try to kill my light. Hmm.
That's okay. I understand that. I have stalkers and people trying to do that all the time, but I'm crazy too. That's what keeps me balanced, because because again, right? I think again, people, it goes back to what I said about magnetism. When you have a light, it attracts both good and bad,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
you have to feel equipped to deal with that. My light attracts a lot of good. It attracts a lot of fucking unstable too. But I have to believe that I am grounded enough to be able to handle that. But that's why so many people are afraid to shine. They're just afraid of other people.
Yeah.
And you should.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's worst case scenarios, and I can tell you as someone who's been in some of these like worst case scenarios, is that a lot of times you're a lot more equipped than you realize. Yeah, I believe absolutely. Okay, so if your fear is, being physically harmed, that's a valid fear. As a public
Of course.
figure, I am very much concerned about, being harmed. And yes, I believe in defense classes. I believe in being strapped. I believe in being sovereign enough to put boundaries with people. Like, I use the law. You think if a crazy bitch is stalking me and threatening my life, I don't file a report? No, I'm gonna use the law. I don't play that game.
Yeah. That's deep. When I keep reading that in my mind, what this young lady shared, and from my end, I always tend to find. Obviously, this is not a reading, but if I read into that statement that she shared with us, I always find a connection to a person's lineage as to why those fears. Because if I have not had a situation in which my life has been in physical danger,
Mm-hmm.
why do I have that continuous fear of losing my life? And it's usually tied to someone in your family. It's usually tied to an issue with your mom's experiences or your father's experiences or a grandmother or someone who did lose their life or someone that at some point in their life was in danger, endangered by someone else. So it would be interesting for you to look at your history in terms of what is your family's history and how is that showing up. Because I assure you, I could find something in your lineage that supports why you feel this way. Because obviously it hasn't happened; it's just a fear. But why would you have that fear? That restricts you from your sexual energy, not physical sexual energy in terms of expression, in terms of creativity. So that's something for you. I suggest for you to be able to look at. I'm thinking about that.
I
That
saw someone I saw someone say that she said my ex cheated on me with an OnlyFans girl and I'm still trying to make sense of it all and see where I lacked while trying hard not to be hard on myself about it. I always want to tell people like it's not always about lack. Like there are some very beautiful fucking people in the world and yet someone still want to go like have something else. And sometimes it's like I've heard a lot of men say this, and it's true, but it's not true. I've had a lot of men say to me like sometimes it's not that deep, and sometimes people just want an experience. Sometimes people are lacking something within themselves that they need to feel a little bit wholer or to find themselves. I think that so many women put so much heavy burdens on themselves that they're not great. Like when you look at the women in the world that have been cheated on, Beyonce's been cheated on, J Lo's been cheated on. All the most powerful women, Shakira, who else recently? Cardi B. Like some of the most powerful, beautiful women in the world have been cheated on. And it's not really always a lack of what you don't possess. People just want the experiences that they want, whether they have a void they're trying to fill or they just want a little surplus flow. I think that we just put so much harshness on ourselves. And after my last uncoupling, I've always been transparent. My last uncoupling, I got cheated on and he conceived a whole baby on me and he ended up marrying the woman. And to be honest, it was just our time was up. I had an experience with him. And as I prayed him into my life, I prayed him out. It was time for a new experience. And
yes.
so sometimes I just think that, again, I was even thinking about this today. I was even thinking about cheating today. And I was just like, my marriage ended because I cheated. And my cheating aligned me with something that I needed more of in my life to get to this purpose of why we're even sitting here right now.
Hmm.
And I don't think that inherently, if cheating is such a bad thing, why would God make my purpose go through a certain path that it did to get here? So
Hmm.
now, do I believe that we should be honest with each other? But at the end of the day, this whole idea of possessing one another and controlling one another is very man made.
Hmm. Okay. How did it make
I,
you feel?
how did what make me feel?
The idea of because when I hear you, what I hear
Mm-hmm,
is the need. It's almost like there's a sense of control
mm-hmm,
from the other person, whoever you're with,
mm-hmm.
or that felt, cheated or what have you. And your natural self that doesn't like to be controlled. You
Yeah.
don't like to be controlled, period.
Mm-hmm,
So where I don't wouldn't say bargain. where's the compromise? Where's the bargain? Where's the balance? Where's, how do you, in your mind, in your heart, define what your ideal relationship is for you?
For me,
Knowing yourself as well as you do.
I have come to learn that I need a best friend, a person who also believes in legacy and mission, someone who is not sexually repressed. Um, but in terms of what I want, it on paper would look like a marriage, but in spirits and in embodiment, it's untraditional, it's unorthodox. And I think at the end of the day, even if we're talking about cheating, right, and the constructs of structure, because really being single versus partnered, single versus married, all these things, they are constructs and they are structures that humans have created, right?
Yep.
And so my thing is this, like in my last relationship, right, where I got cheated on, which I do think I got a little bit of karma for being a cheater for one time in my life. I do think I did. But I had to learn that I think I was angriest with this last uncoupling when he cheated was because it wasn't just the sex part and whatever. It was more like my values. So it's like I value a man that respects me and my intelligence. So you making me look dumb to a bitch because she knew about me, and then when she reached out to me, she used my business site, like kind of bringing like parasitic energy like into my legacy and where I find my most power. That's what made me upset.
Yeah.
That's what made me feel like I lacked control. I don't think I was so much mad. Like, I remember reading the text and it was like, I know that your woman is in women's empowerment. And it made me feel like I had no control of being seen as like a fraud or sovereign. Like, it was more about the respect. So, like, even in that relationship, we had conversations where it's like, if you want a different experience, like, be honest, right? Or this. So, I think ultimately, like, I don't like being controlled. So when other people, we make agreements around our structures or whatever, and they want to maintain control without giving me certain permissions too, that's when I get upset.
Yeah.
So when people create structures to repress me, but then give themselves false control and power, that's the shit I don't like. So I don't know. I'm a very freedom seeking person. I'm a five of spades in cardology, and the fives in cardology are very much like freedom seekers, non-traditional, don't really like to be tied down, get bored easy, are restless. And so ultimately, like I need someone who could keep up.
Not impossible, not impossible, but there's a lot. I like the fact that you're able to own that. A lot of people are not able to own that, and that's the issue, right? Your a person's inability to own what they really want,
Mm-hmm.
it boxes them in. It's a sign of shame. It's a sign of guilt for having those desires. Whereas with you, you have accepted your authentic self. Which has a lot to do with your guardian angel also as well, and the fact that you're an Aquarius. Because Shuna accepted herself. She accepted who she really is. So self acceptance plays a major role in that. So
Mm-hmm.
in terms of sexual healing,
Yeah.
what could be contributing things that people, women specifically, and women of color, and indigenous, and even in this day and age,
Mm-hmm.
we can even include their queer people as well, and what have you. What can people do to bring healing to their sexual energy that has been repressed, conditioned, traumatized, boxed, shamed, and guilted?
It's funny. I want to answer this real quick. Goddess switch the code. She says she's a five of hearts. The gentleman that I'm seeing is a five of hearts. So when the fives get together, we have a ball. But again, I think that. at the end of the day, what people can do to take back their autonomy and their sexual energy is, again, like I made this diagram one time, which was like the chakra system, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so from the crown down to your root, your crown, your throat, your heart, your solar plexus, your sacral, your root, right? When you take back ownership of all of your sexual energy, you're saying, I will not be shamed for the way that I think. I will not be shamed for the way that I speak. I will not be shamed for the way that I love. I will not be shamed for the relationship I have with myself and my purpose. I will not be shamed with how I create, how I find joy, how I fucking find desire in this world. And I will not be shamed for what makes me feel safe, what makes me feel protected, and how I'm confident about showing up in this motherfucking bitch every fucking day. What you gonna do about it, ho?
I see.
That's what it's about, and when you can get comfortable with all of that, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I think that I've met a lot of women who are comfortable in their flesh, right? Sexual energy on the surface level, there's women that I know that know how to dance and know how to show their bodies, but they don't know how to speak. They don't know how
Mm-hmm.
to communicate their feelings. And so what I love about that is, like, just as you find that fluidity in that dance, in those other things, you can find that it's just about practice.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
just about practice. I tell women all the time, and you talked about earlier, we were talking about how, like, speaking loud, like, I will go to my goddess circle sometimes, and I'm like, baby, speak up. I need you to speak up because women are mumbling. There's quiet. I'll tell them, like, hey, can you turn on your cameras? Oh, well, I look crazy. Baby, I'm just trying to see you. I don't need to see, like, one of the things that was a big mission when I created Trap Witch to give women permission in their sexual energy is there was an intention and an agenda where I show up glamorized sometimes and show up looking fucking crazy. And again, Cardi B inspired me to do that shit. She would look fucking crazy sometimes, unhinged and unkept and unpolished. And then sometimes she do because she appreciates herself as a whole. And again, appreciating myself as a whole. I literally just made a post last night and it was a little ratchet again, but I talked about just like non-performance. And again, we can take back ownership of all of these things, but
Mm-hmm.
then also just allow yourself to show up at times non-performing. There's times where I will write a whole structured think piece on how I want to communicate sometimes, and then sometimes I'll just show up in a flow. Life in general is a balance of learning dances that have structure and sometimes fucking freestyling,
Yes.
because that's where intuition and that's where a channel is built from.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good to sometimes have structure too. And again, it's the polarity of the masculine and the feminine.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
But what did she say? As women, how do we deal with situations similar to the one I stated above when we confront infidelity and the man doubles down on lying? Here's the thing. I don't respect liars. Again, at the end of the day, when a person is a constant liar to stay in control whilst denying you, let's say, your truth, your freedom, your whatever, again, a lot of men lie because they don't want to extend the same courtesies to the woman that they are with, right? If a man says to me, baby, I want to have outside experiences, I'll be like, so do I get them too? Because that's what I want to know. Because I want to have fun too. Do you want to have fun together? Like, how do you want to? But you're not going to be here lying to me and getting to live your little shady ass truths in little pieces. Well, we could just be living our whole truths anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most men who are liars, they like control, and then some of them have shame. Sometimes it's a combination of shame, sometimes it's control. You got to figure out his reason for his lying.
You got to
I
figure
think
out
that's
his
more
reason
important.
for
What's
his
your reason
lying.
for the lying?
Yeah, you got to figure out his reason for his lying. But for me, you as a woman got to know your own truth.
Yeah.
Because your own truth is individual and exclusive to you. And it doesn't have to revolve around his reason, right? because that's his work. It's not your work. It's his work to do. It's his
Mm-hmm.
responsibility to do. So therefore, when it comes to making a decision of that sort, you got to know what your boundary is, what you're willing to accept, and what you're not willing to accept. And regardless of what his truth is, you have to stay authentic to what feels right for you, mentally,
You know what
emotionally.
was one of the reasons I cheated on my husband? So this sounds crazy to people. I was like in a 90-day fiance marriage. So we were long distance, but when I'm faithful to a motherfucker, I'm faithful to a motherfucker, okay? One of the reasons I cheated was because after we got married and we were going through our immigration process, he was making dumb fucking decisions. Like his decisions didn't impact me when it came to our immigration case. And he would take the advice of his friends, and it would just like set us back. And I would get frustrated because I'm like, now you're robbing me of your presence sooner because now you're setting us back. You're just so I remember that once he stopped caring about decisions that impacted me, I think that's where I secretly started not caring about the decisions that he didn't know what might be potentially impact him.
I
But
agree.
when I think about it, I still cared so much because I remember laying there with my lover that I was cheating on him with. And I would talk to my lover about our situation. My lover knew about my husband. And we would talk about, he's like, so what happens when he comes? And this, I said, well, when my husband comes, then we can't see each other anymore. But I realized because my husband's decisions were robbing me of what I wanted from him, I went and made a decision to just get from someone else in the meantime. And that's really what it was about. And that person was accepting me more than my husband was at the time. So it was easy, you know? So
Hmm.
I think you have to look at the reasons of why the lie. Because I remember, I was mirroring my husband a lot. Like, he was getting so complacent about like our contact where he'd be like, FaceTime me, hey, are you okay? Did you eat? Da, 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 and then hang up. And then on the way to the man's house I was cheating on, I'd be like, FaceTime my husband, hey baby, are you okay? Did you eat? Did you da, 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 da? Okay, okay. And then go about my business. And that was the first time in my life I had ever been a cheater. Once I got married.
Interesting, huh? How that works.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting how that works. Well, in terms of healing sexual energy, based because I got to revert to what I know in my line of work, I will always find that all that contributes to a person's lack of expression, lack of creativity, interrupted sexual energy is something that goes back to what I call lineage repair.
Mm-hmm.
Because I promise you, you're not the first one. I
Mm-hmm.
promise you, it did not start with you.
No,
I
my mom,
promise.
my mom and I's story are very similar.
You see, in your case, and in many, and everybody else's case as well. So, for the purposes of the work that I do with the community, you know, it's important to understand that this is about lineage repair because for generations, sexuality, especially feminine sexual energy, was either policed, punished, erased, repressed, right? So the shame that many women feel in their bodies today, I know for a fact due to my years and years of understanding ancestral energy and ancestral repair. It started with someone else. It started with your mom, your grandmother, your aunt, your own father, your father's mother, etc., etc. So it's important, yes. Let's own our choices. Let's own our body. Let's do all that kind of beautiful stuff. But let's also do things that allowed us to cut the cords
Yep.
that continues to allow the story to repeat itself over and over and over and over again. That's why I dedicate myself to the work that I do. What kind of things you got going on these days? Are you doing a workshop? Are you doing
Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap this up.
finishing a book?
You said what?
Finishing a book?
So many things. So, again, like I said, like I've spent the last 2 to 3 years doing some really deep personal shadow work to me to really define the types of offerings that I want to do going forward. Right now, I'm actually, I always have readings available. I always have consultations and shadow work sessions that I do with people, but I also am doing some egg cleansings right now. I have just a general one that's great, and then I have one that's more focused on love healing, ancestral blockages through the lineage of the heart chakra. Some of that is sexual energy as well. So it gives people a lot of like good embodiment rituals to do to integrate just very daily, like just very straight to the point of what can help you. So I've been taking, this has been a very much like integrative like a 9-ish year. I forget what personal year I'm in, but this is like a closing of the chapter. So I haven't done many classes this year because I want to make sure I can always do a class, but make sure my energy feels really good when I'm coming back and doing more classes. So I might do one or another maybe before the year, or maybe I'll just wait to start fresh because I don't know. I'm feeling really good
Yeah.
at the end of this rebirth and integration. So yeah, coaching sessions available. So right now, mentorship readings, and then I have 2 different types of egg cleansings that I'm offering.
Mm.
You'll get the cleansing and you'll get the report, and it'll send to your email within like a week or 2. But I'm really enjoying doing them for people because a lot of people are getting good guidance from that right now.
That's good. That's good. That's good. It's very much needed. So definitely, people need to be open to healing. That's another thing that needs to be decolonized. People's understanding of what healing is from a spiritual perspective. In my particular case, what I'm doing, my readings that I still do, one-on-one coaching as well, and what have you, and I come my classes. But every year, as you know, and some of the people on here know, every year I host the ancestral elevation healing ceremony, and that is what particularly deals with lineage repair, right? And it is important for me because we miss the fact that some of the burdens and weight that we're carrying started with our mother, with our father, with our grandparents, with the way they were raised, with the way that our grandparents chose to raise our parents, then how they chose to raise us and impacted us, right? So I've dedicated my whole entire life to this kind of work, but now that I open it to the public at a grander scale, this year will be the 6th annual. I can't believe I've been doing it for 6 years. 6th annual ancestral elevation healing ceremony. And as you know, Trapwich definitely knows. She knows this. She knows the quality of my work and how I will definitely pull all nighters to really push into and pour into the kind of work that I try to bring to the community. So I definitely, from my end, if you're from my following, please definitely schedule a session with the Trap Witch. From my end, I'm doing the ancestral elevation healing ceremony, which will be on November 2nd. All that information is in the link in my bio. I think it's important, especially for the topic of this particular day, but for many other reasons as well. Financial, emotional, sexual energy, what have you. Um, Love, self-love, healing, health, all that. It's about lineage repair. So I definitely invite everyone to look into it. All the information is in my bio. Um, so that's that for me.
Okay.
That
Well,
for
this
me.
has been lovely. Me and Akimaya can literally could do a fucking telethon. So
Oh,
this I said
literally.
let's give people a nice 60 to 90 minutes. It's been such a delight. Hopefully everybody will get what they need from this, and if not, like I said, we're looking to help you with more individualize things and healing your lineage or the shadow work you need to do. Both of us, he is a phenomenal medium. He's a phenomenal oracle. He can give you great ancestral readings around your spiritual court. And, it's like the work that he does is just another level. So if you're looking for, especially on my end, follow him, spiritual readings. That man, I could say that man's name in my house by myself, and he's going to call me the next hour because he's got the bat signal. So he's very tapped in. He's very tuned in. I'm so grateful to call him an elder, a brother, a colleague, a fellow kindred spirit, especially as a disruptor like myself. So I love you.
Yeah,
Thank you for
I do
always coming
too.
together for,
I'll tell you the words that Trap Witch has dedicated to me all the time. Why are you in my business? And I literally, I'd be like, huh, I'm catching something in the energetic waves. What is she doing? What are you doing?
but you know what? I love him in my business because, again, coming into the community that we are a part of and the ways that we met, we met through the religion, the practice. And it is hard sometimes to find not just eldership, but kinship and protectorship and, allies, all these things where people really accept you as a whole. I have had a lot of people love me in pieces and love the idealized version of me. And Afimaye, I believe he, like many people that I do have in my life now, are able to see me as a whole. I think the problem again, right, is like until you are comfortable with all the parts of yourself, you cannot attract your tribe and the people who are able to hold you. And although he's an elder in our practice, like he's also a human being and there's aspects of his personality and his toolbox and his embodiment that feels very comfortable with mine and mine feels safe. So I think that's important because being a part of certain like things, again, like we said, will make you really just put yourself into boxes. And bitch, like the only box I need to go in is in the ground at the end of my life, but no time soon.
That's right. Oh yes. Oh yes. I second that. I second that the whole way. I do hope and pray that we as a collective we understand that we are powerful. We are inherently powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you something before we get off. I love all the Orichas, right? I don't have, I don't ever say one is better than the other because at the end of the day, they all have their unique identity that allows us to understand them within our spiritual Afro-Cuban practice. Now, one thing, one that is beautifully, expressed is your guardian angel Oshun. Your guardian angel Oshun expresses herself, in by natural laws of life in ways that continues to teach us,
Mm-hmm.
both women and men, how important it is to own your identity.
Mm-hmm.
If there's an Orisha that teaches us that, it's Oshun. Owning your identity. We know that in the mainstream, Oshun is portrayed as, the love and sexuality and Venus and, pleasure and monies or what have you, gold. And she is all that, but she's so much more than just that, right?
Mm-hmm.
She is the one that knows abandonment. She is the one that also knows abuse. She is the one that will also eat you up with a smile if she has to and not think about it twice. She's the one that will allow someone to think that she has forgotten the pain that was inflicted on her. And when she comes back to collect, it's time to pay, and people pay hard. So through my spiritual practice and through my Afro-Cuban practice, I don't, I never force feed my tradition onto anyone, but I do bring the lessons that Orishas teaches to us to the community in a palpable way that's able to be received without feeling like I'm trying to integrate you into the tradition because God knows I run away from that. I'm not trying to integrate you into the tradition. But I do believe that there's lots to learn from universal laws. There's lots to learn from nature. There's lots to learn from Mother Earth. There's lots to learn about the universe that is not always this pretty, peachy, colorful thing, right? Mother Earth is beautiful. Mother Earth is serene, is calm. Mother Earth is also a tsunami. Mother Earth is also, a tornado. It will come and rip right through things to allow what? To allow things to rebuild. So one thing that I pray that people are able to gather from this conversation today is no matter what you've been through, no matter how you've been broken in the past, no matter how you've been stripped from your God given rights, no matter how much you've suffered as a result of this colonized, world that we've been living in, you have the inherited freedom to rebuild yourself in whichever way you so choose to, most importantly, without anyone's permission, without anyone's
And,
authority
and,
and green lighting it.
and I really want, I always tell women, especially if you're a woman in Northern America, please take that privilege. Please take that privilege right now so seriously. You
Oh yeah.
know, I don't want to get too emotional because it's going to make me emotional, but like, when you see the shit that's happening to women in Sudan, when you see what's happening to
Yes.
women in Gaza, like,
Yes.
take your privilege to have so much autonomy as a woman and fight for it in a place where they want to take it away, but we still have so much privilege because when I just think about what they are doing to women in other countries that do not have the privileges that we have, you should be so proud we are able to inspire the rest of the world. Like America's women, Northern women, we inspire so much in the rest of the world. And it's important for us to take that autonomy and that privilege seriously because there's a lot of women in the rest of the world that are waiting for that vibration. I work with women. I've been working with women recently, like in New Zealand, and they were telling me that how they look to America so much for their inspiration at times. And so I'm blessed to be able to connect with women all over the world. I remember one time speaking with a woman on a rooftop in Mumbai, like, and I'm like, how did you find me? Like, sometimes when you connect with people, you're like, how did you find me? But I just think it's really important. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional, but like,
No, of course.
it's the mothers in me. Like, it hurts so bad to see what's happening to women and children in some parts of the world right now. And that is a lineage healing in itself, to be a woman who is a part of the part of the revolution that is leading. Please take that shit seriously right now.
Yes.
Just take it
Yes.
seriously.
And we say, what's going on in other parts of the world, which has been going on for years,
Yeah.
years, and
Yeah.
centuries actually, in many parts of
Yeah.
the world, right? But those of you that are privileged to be able to make choices in this country that other women in other countries have not been able to,
Yeah.
you need to really take advantage of that, as the trap witch says, because it's even right now currently in danger for you.
Yeah.
It's in danger for you. There's a huge fight going on right now,
Yeah.
energetically, vibrationally, spiritually. There's a huge fight going on right now. I don't talk about politics because, listen, it brings in, it just brings in a lot, right? And we're gonna have a lot of people that side with one thing and side with the other. Can't understand anyone that sides with the current government. But anyway, I don't want to get into that discussion, especially, this is not the topic that we came here to discuss today. But it is important to understand what the trap was just said, because, you know, she feels it in her heart, because we are the spiritual healers. We are empaths, even us men. Yes, ladies, I'm sorry to tell you that us men are also empathic as well. And it hurts to see how things are moving. It
Mm.
really hurts to see. If you have a mother, if you have a sister, if you have a daughter, if you have a wife, if you have anyone that you're connected to from the divine feminine, it leaves you with no other alternatives than to have a broken heart with witnessing,
Mm.
being a witness to what's going on in right here in our own backyard.
Yeah.
So when she says take advantage of it, you know, I also hear honor it through your voice, honor it through your body for the purposes of our topic, honor it by honoring your identity, your power, your inherent God-given power, because believe it or not, things should not be taken for granted, and what we've had in this country all this far could be taken away. Okay, and Spirit has been delivering this message for years now. And we're seeing things happening in our backyard now that supports messages that I've been listening to Spirit say for quite a few years now. So we must honor it, in how you show up, in how you protect yourself, and how you protect yours, and how you stand up for a cause, and how you stand up for something. What do you do? Because as human beings, having, as spiritual beings having a human experience, we all have been entrusted to come to serve to this universe. That is our part of our original contract, is to serve. And the question always remains, how are you serving? How are you serving yourself, your family, your community, the culture that you're in? If you're a mother, if you're a father, how are you serving so that that child of yours, whether he or she is 5 or whether she or he is 21, how are you serving so that they can be empowered to not go through what you went through, to not go through what your mama and grandma and daddy went through, and to have the tools to be able to protect themselves better than what you've been able to protect yourself thus far. So that's why we must do the work. We must do it individually, and we must also do it collectively. Those of us that are spiritual healers, and actually at the end of the day, we're all spiritual healers, in my opinion. But what I mean, those of us that are spiritual healers doing this work at a grander scale, at a grander level to the community, we're showing up so that we can, through the vibration of our guardian angel or spirit guides or universal laws, can empower you to be empowered so that we can be equal, because we are equals. I'm not better than you. We are equals. We're just supporting you and guiding you so that you can unlock what's already in you, so that you can be introduced what's already to you. I'm not giving you shit. It's already in you. It's just guiding you so it can come forward, so it can show up, and you can use these tools to honor your life, your legacy,
And
your what you bring
like
to the
you talked
table.
about Oshun earlier, like I don't believe I'm here to be a traditionally orthodox priestess in the ways that people expect Oshun to always be expressed, in the
Mhm.
religious community. But to what you speak of in feminine leadership, like I know what it's like to be abandoned, to be rejected, to be all the things that Oshun has endured. But to know self-love is to know liberation, is to know
Yes,
freedom, is to know ascension. Oshun knew the lowest of low so she could know the highest of high. And I think
yes,
that's, again, for me, I am here to inspire the feminine collective to know that from the lowest of low you have experienced as a woman to the highest of high, you can go with it,
yes,
and it'll fucking stop you unless you stop yourself. And that, to me, if you have that privilege at this day and age where you are in this world as a woman, you should take advantage of it.
yes. Ashe. Ashe, ashe. So let's do the work. Let's do the work. Let's divorce the excuses. We're here. And we're just two people, but we're not the only ones. Unfortunately, social media also lends itself for a lot of charlatans and a lot of fucked up people and a lot of people that are, but there are some good people out here, and we are trying to do the work as authentically as we know how to,
Hmm.
and it's just a matter of you deciding to show up for yourself.
Yep.
You have to show up for yourself. No one can do it for you. No one can do the work for you. And we have a responsibility to do the work for us, for the many that came before us that did not have the opportunities that you and I have. So therefore, you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to your lineage, and you owe it to the generations to come. So from my end, from my group, whether there are only one or two of you from my end here, schedule with the trap, which get other perspectives that's not just mine, and guidance that's not just mine, and opening yourself up to her if you feel aligned to her vibration or her energy. I don't see why wouldn't you, anyway, but anyway. And from my end, listen, the ancestral elevation ceremony is on November 2nd. Sign your ass up for it.
I'll share it to my stories as
You
always.
know sign up for it. It's all still open, so that we can continue to uplift our lineage, liberate ourselves, and understand ourselves, and regain our authentic power. I thank you for accepting my invitation.
Yes, get back outside. Okay. All right. Love you and
we
thank
need
you
we,
for
we needed the spiciness. We needed it.
yes. Oh, she's warming back up. I told him before we got on, my I was cooking my dinner and my fucking toaster oven caught on fire, and I was like, "Is my oven on fire?" Yes, it is. Okay. So they had to let me know it was gonna be spicy, but this is just a warm up. We're getting back outside again after a nice, few months of shadow work myself. So
Yes.
So,
Yes.
guys, thank you for being present. From those of you who came on his side, came on my side, I'm going to repost it to my timeline so that, you know, people can tap in, and I will invite you to collaboration.
Awesome.
All right, y'all. Have
All
a
right.
beautiful
Off we
night.
go.